on. And if that's okay with you. But thank you everyone for coming. Heidi Johnson is with us to give an overview of the PAES lab, what it is. We're just starting out, so even though we're kind of focused on more center-based and really higher needs resource, we know longer term that we'd certainly, like we just had this conversation, Heidi, Amy, one of our teachers just mentioned, there definitely are some other students, some resource students that would certainly benefit from going through the lab and being, having that experience. So I will turn it over to you, Heidi. And thank you again for being with us and for giving this overview.
Sure, yeah, and I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. You'll probably see a bunch of stuff here, but I wanted to start out by showing you my website, worklifeready.com, and then I will get into a PowerPoint that'll go through PAES. Here comes Julie. And just to introduce myself, my name is Heidi Johnson, and I've been working with PAES Lab since it started in Minnesota, probably about 13 years ago. We have well over 100 PAES Labs in Minnesota, and this is my website, worklifeready.com, and I'm on the PAES page. There's lots of resources on this page, I just wanted to kind of show you that quickly. And then also there's a little video, I'm not going to play that just introduces PAES. And then if you scroll down, I just thought I would show you this, that I did end up working with your architect, which I don't typically get that involved, but it was great to plan your space because, and so on my website, I just wanted to show you that your school is featured as one of the floor plans. So there's lots of different floor plans. And so I just thought I would let you know that you're on the website. So, and then I'll get into this PowerPoint that I'm going to go through the PAES lab and all of the features, all of the reports, and have, kind of go through that. And then if you have questions, if you can just hold them to the end, I certainly will entertain any questions at the end and be happy to answer any questions. So PAES is an acronym, just like in special education. I think there's a zillion acronyms, but PAES is also an acronym. It does stand for Practical Assessment Exploration System. PAES has been around since the 80s. The 1980s is when it was first developed, and it's gone through many versions, many revisions along the years, and it will continue to thrive and expand. But it is, the basic assessments really remain the same. It is an assessment of employment potential, and I'll kind of show you how that all works. But it is a lot of functional skills, functional job skills, and their hands-on skills that the students have a chance to try all these skills and find out what they're good at and what they like to do, and find out if they're competitive for entry-level work. So we'll get into that and explain. So what happens is in PAES is we kind of take over a room in your school, and we've taken over Julie's room. That's where the PAES lab will be housed in Brooklyn Center. And so we convert a typical room into a work experience lab. And that lab is not run like a class. It is actually run like a job site. And so any of the students that participate in this work lab are PAES employees, and any staff that works in the lab, and I always say, whether they're the superintendent, they're a job coach, or a para, if teacher, it doesn't matter. If they're working in the lab and assessing the skills for the PAES employees, they are a job supervisor. So they are PAES job supervisors. So they really interact with the students as if they really are employees, and they treat them that way. And you will have a trainer that will be coming to your location and doing a day and a half of in-service training for the staff. So they understand this concept because it's so different than what is typical. And even paraprofessionals, it's really important that they are trained and understand how to work in a PAES lab as a job supervisor as well, because it goes against the grain of what they've been trained to do. Because in PAES, we back off and give the least amount of assistance and see what these PAES employees can do on their own. So there's a huge emphasis on working independently and seeing what they can do on their own. And there also is a huge emphasis on appropriate work behaviors. Now, I get told all the time that you can talk and lecture to students all day long about they have to show up to work on time, they have to dress appropriately for work. If they go for a job interview, the things that they need to do in the job interview, you can lecture about what it's like to have a boss and how you interact with a boss or how you interact with coworkers, but nothing really teaches that to the students as well as in the PAES lab, because in PAES, they are going to be interacted with as if they are an employee. So they will be expected to show up to work on time, dress appropriately for work, act appropriately for work, not bug their coworkers. It may sound crude, but they cannot come to work with their pants sagging down and their underwear showing. That is not appropriate at work. So all of those soft skills that are necessary to get and keep a job, we work on in the PAES lab, and we work on it very intuitively. This is just a snippet of what a PAES lab looks like. It's kind of a corner of a PAES lab, and you'll see that there's shelving units with job boxes, and they're colored job boxes. So I'll show you and tell you all about that. But there is 264 job skill boxes that the students will be assessed on when they're in PAES, working as PAES employees. And so you already have your PAES lab. It would have came on 2 or 3 skids of stuff, all of the job boxes, and then the tools and equipment to actually perform these assessments. So you can see in the background, there's construction hand tools. You can't see it, but in kind of the kitchen area, you're going to have the microwave, the refrigerator, the small appliances, a sewing machine, things like that. Other equipment that's necessary to do and try all of these job skills. So I always say that the skills are really generalizable skills that are necessary or found at entry-level job sites. That's really where all of these job skills came from. PAES is a great kickoff to students' transition. It is in a perfect world, best if students can access PAES Lab before their first work experience. That's your goal. You're not going to start there. You have an awful lot of students that can benefit from this. Someone needs to mute, please, if you can. So your lab at the beginning, and this is very typical when PAES starts, it's kind of a ramp up. You can't, have a fully functioning lab until staff kind of gets used to it and understands how the whole program works. And so your focus is going to be with your older students in the high school, and your center-based students, the higher needs students, is going to be the focus in your first year. And just so you know, the contact and how to refer students to PAES will be through Lucy and Julie for that first year. That's how the referrals will go through. And so I just wanted to mention that. So it happens all the time. A good example of this is Northeast Metro 916. I remember when they put in their first PAES lab, they had it in their transition program, and it was actually their focus was the students that were higher functioning with students that had behaviors, and they found out and actually ended up moving it backwards to their high school, and then maybe years later they started using it with their middle school students. So this is really typical to kind of start with the low hanging fruit, the students where you really need those services, and then kind of work backwards for a, maybe a 2, 3, 5-year plan type of a thing. So, but in PAES, the PAES employees are going to find out what work skills that they're good at and what work skills they like to do. So they will, like I said, learn and practice positive work behaviors that are expected on a job in a work setting. So they'll learn that. And then of course, and if you're teeing them up for a work experience or whether it's a school-based enterprise or it's a work experience for competitive employment or supported employment out in the community, you're going to choose that work experience based on their proven skills and abilities, and that's what transition's all about. So consequently, your students are going to be teed up for a much better experience when they have their first work experience, and hopefully that'll catapult them for success in the rest of their, as they transition out of school and into independent life. PAES is a valid data-driven transition assessment. It's a very unique assessment. Most vocational assessments are one-time tests, or where you sit down and you take a test, or maybe you look at some, pictures or video scenes as an interest inventory. PAES is very different than that, but PAES is first and foremost a vocational assessment, but it is a curriculum embedded assessment, and it is an ongoing assessment. So your students will be PAES employees for at least a half of a year, a semester. That's the minimum time. Of students that have more significant needs may be in PAES for a year, 2 years. I've even had some PAES labs that have had PAES employees participate for 3 years. That was actually Edina High School, and they reported back to me that they had an employee that was in for 3 years and actually started following the work procedures independently in his 3rd year of PAES. So it really is meant to meet the students where they're at. Eventually, when you're working with your resource students, they may just be in PAES for a semester or so, but the students that have more significant needs will be in longer. But PAES is an assessment of employment potential. I'm going to show you the reports and how that looks and how that reports out in some slides that are coming up. PAES also does help with the transition requirements. That's why a lot of administrators really like PAES. It does have a really detailed report that helps with compliance of Indicator 13, which is one of the, the goals of transition. Oftentimes PAES is, well, not oftentimes, it's always hopefully positioned as a privilege to be in the PAES lab. Some of the PAES labs will actually have the students fill out a job application, maybe even go through an interview process to get accepted as a job in the PAES lab. I don't see most labs doing that in their first year, so this would be maybe something that you do in subsequent years if it makes sense and it works for you and your school. But this slide also does tell how PAES helps most students on IEPs with varying levels of disabilities. As a general rule, students that function at higher levels would be in PAES when they're younger. Students with more significant needs oftentimes are in PAES when they're older. I've already talked about how your lab is going to be positioned and which students are going to be coming in your lab first. PAES does mimic real work. You will have a time clock that'll be on a PC in your lab, and that's where your PAES employees, that's the first thing they're going to do when they come in, is they're going to clock in and get ready to work. I'll show how that works with the job procedures soon. I already mentioned that teachers become the boss and the students are the employees. You also purchased with your lab a few programs that are token economy programs that you can use and maybe you'll use in some of your classes. I think Julie might use some of them in some of her other classes that she's offering students, but we do have a money manager program that's basic, actually good old fashioned checks, check deposits, that kind of a thing. It's kind of the paper bucks and coins. And if you want, you can pay students with this money and then open up a school store. Again, that's just something that you don't have to do with PAES, but a lot of the labs do that. It is typically not anything you do in your first year. It's usually something that's introduced as your PAES lab continues to roll out. You also do have a program called Replicated Reality. That is the online banking, online checking, online savings, bill pay, that kind of a thing. So this is kind of the online platform, and then this is more of the functional and the hands-on bucks and things. This is what it looks like. This is a PAES lab supervisor opening up a school store every payday. And like I said, that's most of the time when you're first introducing your lab, you're probably for the first year just going to get hopefully the assessments done on the students, and that's your goal, and just kind of ramp up from there. There's 5 different work areas in PAES. They're the 5 PAES components. We have business marketing, computer technology, construction industrial, consumer services, and processing production. These 5 areas will be kind of separated out in your lab. You kind of have 5 different work areas within your lab, and then you're also going to have an employee check-in station, and you will have a job supervisor desk. And this is how PAES is structured and set up. These are the 5 different components and the job strands or units that fall under each of the components. This is the construction industrial area. And so in construction industrial, these are the job strands or units that the students will be exposed to. So in construction industrial, they will be exposed and assessed on their skills in shop measurement, wrenches and bolts, screws and nails, shop saws, wood projects, metal projects, electrical projects, and parts identification. The shop measurement strand is running vertically on the career area poster. So you can see shop measurement 1, which is the easiest job. So the orange level jobs are the easiest jobs, all the way down to the brown level jobs are the most difficult. Employees always start up at the orange level jobs. Those are the base level jobs, and they don't move from one level to the next without mastering that previous level. And they can attempt that job over and over and over again. Those are called trials to master the job and then perhaps move down to the next level. PAES also has, if students are not able to piece everything together and do the whole job, we have an optional scoring process where they do not have to repeat the job over and over again, but we just have check-ins with them. And those are for the students with more significant needs. And at the end of the optional scoring process, if they're not able to piece that whole job together, we have what we call the subtask evaluation. So every single job is also broken down by subtasks. So if they cannot do the whole job, we're going to find out what pieces of that job they can do. And so it would be a subtask analysis. And so as an example on the shop measurement 1 through 6 job strand, shop measurement 1, they're measuring boards to the nearest whole inch. If they get down to shop measurement 6, they're going to be measuring to the 32nd of an inch. So you can see they just get more and more difficult as they go down. In EP1, electrical projects 1, they may be just cutting a wire. If they get down to EP 5 and 6, they're going to be wiring a doorbell or wiring a lamp socket. So the jobs get more and more difficult as they progress down. In metal projects 1, they may be just scoring metal sheets with a scratch awl and a metal ruler in metal projects 1. They're going to end up cutting those down, bending them, and if they get down to M metal projects 1, I flipped over to the wrong strand. If they get down to MP6, they're going to have a small candle holder project. Wood projects, again, they may be just cutting a board at wood projects 1, but if they make their way all down to wood project 6, they're going to have a small bookend project that they made. So you get kind of the picture that the jobs start real easy and then they move down. And all of your students are not going to get down to the red and the brown or even the blue areas. Some of your students may stay up in the orange level jobs, may dip down to a few green or yellow, and that's okay. They're still going to have success in PAES. So success in PAES is having your students have a nice even exploration of these areas and filtering down and figuring out which areas they're good at and which things they like to do. The things that they're not so good at, we're just going to move over. And because what the goal in here is to find out what they're good at and what they like to do. So that's what we focus on. I'll just kind of go through the other areas so you have an idea. In consumer service, we work on things like food measurement, food service, food weights, food preparation. That's the restaurant type of jobs. We also do cloth measurement, hand sewing, machine sewing, housekeeping, and custodial. So in consumer service, it's jobs like restaurant, custodial, and what we refer to as the needle trades. I like to talk about the needle trades just to let people know that your students are going to be exposed to a sewing machine. In machine sewing 1, they're just going to be seeing if they can run a blank piece of paper with no thread or anything and just see if they can sew on a straight line. If you have students that want to be a heavy equipment operator, or maybe you have students that want to drive a car, if they are working on a sewing machine, that takes hand-eye foot coordination. So you think of that sewing machine as kind of an assessment vehicle. We're assessing, do they have hand-eye foot coordination? So it just gives a nice example. And, you know, a lot of people think in the sewing that the jobs are jobs in a tailor shop. Well, I've seen lots of students go through PAES and actually branch out to working in an auto body repair shop where they're working on the upholstery, or working in a boat marina where they're sewing awnings and things like that. So there's a sewing is not just to figure out if you can sew and work in a tailor shop. Computer technology jobs are going to be done on Windows-based computers. We do very intentionally use Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Microsoft Excel in the PAES lab because we are told, our transition coordinators are told by businesses that many of our students are leaving and exiting school without the basic knowledge of how to navigate a Windows computer or how to do some basic data entry on a Excel spreadsheet. And so all of those jobs in computer technology will be done on PCs, data entry, word processing, mailing technology. They actually work on creating mailing labels for a bulk mailing, information management, information technology, PowerPoint, digital photography. That's the computer technology area. I already did talk through construction, industrial, processing, production jobs are along the lines of manufacturing work, order taking, assembly, that type of a thing. So bolt assembly, pipe assembly, color assembly. I'm not going to read through them all. I think you guys can kind of see the type of jobs that are in that area. Business marketing are hands-on job skills, really good examples of generalizable skills. Alphabetizing, that's a generalizable skill that's really commonplace on many entry-level job sites. Identification, filing, numerical sorting, collating, making change, working with a cash register, working with a 10 key, and a basic keyboarding evaluation. Can they type and what is their keyboarding skills like? So that gives a really good overview of the jobs and the units and kind of the way that's all set up. This is a look at the PAES work procedure. This is what the PAES employees follow every day they come into work. They're going to come in, they're going to clock in on the time clock, they're going to get their work folder, they're going to get their stopwatch, they're going to get their job assignment, and they're going to use the PAES charts to figure out which area they're working in that day. By the way, the PAES Lab is typically a 5-day-a-week program. It doesn't have to be that way, but typically employees are in a different area each day of the week. And so that's kind of how that is set up. So they're going to figure out what area they're in, and they're going to get their job card. I'll show you what that looks like. That's their instructions. And they're going to navigate the lab and find all of their materials on their own if they can. They're going to fill out their work record. They're going to look over their job card, and they're going to call their supervisor to begin their work. So all of this steps all the way through steps 5, we really work hard at getting those employees to follow all of those steps independently on their own. When the employees are first new in the lab, they will go through an orientation just like you would if you started a new job. And so they'll learn and practice these procedures. And if, you know, the students that have more significant needs, their job orientation might be a couple weeks long. Whereas when you start working with students that are higher functioning, their orientation just might be, you know, a day. So, but either way, we're going to want all the employees to know where everything is located in the lab, and so that they can access everything and hopefully maneuver through and get through all of these steps independently on their own. When they get to steps 5, they're going to call their job supervisor. If you ever go into a PAES lab, you'll hear the employees call out supervisor, and you'll hear any supervisor say, "I will be with you in a minute." That is something that we train in PAES. It's kind of the PAES way. We want employees to be able to practice their patience and wait for their job supervisor. When they get out to work, their job supervisor is not going to be on their beck and call. So we have them practice their patience and wait for their supervisor to come over very intentionally. And the supervisor is basically going to say to them, "Do you know how to do this job?" "Yeah, I know how to do this job." "Well, great. Start your stopwatch and begin your job." And the supervisor is going to walk away. If the employee says, "No, I don't know how to do this job," the supervisor is going to start by giving some verbal cues, maybe reading the whole instructions to them. They may show them how to do part or all of the job, or maybe they even have to do guided practice, which is actually really doing that job with the employee. And no matter what level of assistance is given, we really want to just walk away then and see if that employee can do the job. So the employee is going to start their stopwatch, do their job, stop the stopwatch, and then they're going to write down a time, and they're going to say whether they like it or not. That is a huge part of PAES, is that after each employee does a job skill, they're going to say whether they like it or not. And that's before they call their supervisor back over to check their work. So I have to take just a minute to talk about Susie from Stillwater. I just make this name up, but it is actually a real student. I hear these stories all the time. Susie comes into the PAES lab and says, "You know what? I see all this stuff and I'm only interested in this. Everybody knows my dad has a construction company. It's been on my transition plan to work in construction, so I don't need to do any of this other stuff." Well, Susie, that's not how it works in PAES. Mondays, you're going to do processing. Tuesdays will be your construction day. Wednesday will be consumer service, etc. Well, it took Susie less than 2 weeks to find out she couldn't tolerate construction. She hated it. She had just been told her whole life that she was going to work in construction. So she actually couldn't tolerate the loud noises. She didn't have the fine finger dexterity to work with those tools. Susie found out that she loved working in consumer service and is working at a restaurant in this day. So that's really how that PAES works and how that interest inventory works, and is kind of built into the PAES evaluations. These are the evaluations in PAES. This is how we're going to assess our PAES employees. Every time they do a job, we're going to keep track of how much assistance they were given. We're going to keep track of the quality of their work. We have answer keys and scoring criteria. It's a very robust program that way. And they're going to be assessed on their work rate. That's taken from the backside of their job card. This is a job card. It's an orange level job card, food weights 1. It's one of the easy jobs in consumer service where they're going to weigh whole pounds of food. This shows the materials that they need to gather. This is the procedure, and these are the competitive times on the backside of the card. And that's where we get their work rate from. And then, of course, I told you we also evaluate their interest, or they evaluate their interest every time they do a job. All of those evaluations are entered into an app. You guys have purchased the brand new PAES Scan app. And so the job supervisors in Brooklyn Center will be evaluating and scheduling work for all of the workers on the PAES Scan app. And this just gives you an idea of how those scores are recorded. You're going to have a quality score, a work rate score, their interest in that job, their level of assistance, how many trials did it take them to do the job, and can we make an accommodation in PAES? And accommodations in PAES are much different than the academic accommodations. These are work accommodations. These are work accommodations that enable workers to do job skills that they otherwise would not be able to do. And so if we can work on making an accommodation, or maybe you have an OT that can help with that, we will make that accommodation and we will describe it and enter it into the app. And so that will flow out on their performance summary. So that will be a reasonable accommodation that can be provided out in competitive or supported employment. And I did mention this is where they're measuring food. So they're measuring whole cups of sugar. If they can't do the whole job, then we're going to break the evaluation down by subtasks. So here's all the subtasks in measuring whole cups of sugar. You can be as detailed as even making accommodations by subtasks. That's how detailed you can get down on this. So in many schools across the nation, PAES is used heavily for pre-ETs and with voc rehab, with all of that really fine data that comes out of these reports. This is just a look at the assessment report itself. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but this front page is really a nice page where it shows your goal, I told you, was to kind of have the students have an even exploration of these areas so that you get a performance-based evaluation score on each of the areas. So this particular PAES employee had the highest performance aptitude score in computer technology at 69%. What does that mean? If your students have aptitude scores above 70%, they are competitively employable for entry-level work or ready for CTE courses. If their aptitude scores are between 30 and 70%, they need additional job skill training, and their work experiences would be supported out in the community or in the school. So supported work experiences, that's when they would go out with a job coach for their work experience. If their aptitude scores are below 30%, they are not competitively employable for entry-level work, but this is when we're going to have a really nice, robust list of subtasks that they're able to perform and accommodations that enable them to do the work skills. And so this is when we look towards supported employment or carved out experiences. So that's how the report works. You're able to, on the second page of the report, delve down even further. I told you that that student had the highest aptitude in computer technology, so you can do some checks and balances. Well, they liked computer technology the most. They actually needed a little more assistance in computer technology as compared to processing production to learn the job, but their quality of work was highest in computer. They were the fastest at computer, and they needed the fewest trials in computer. So computer technology is definitely a good area for this student. the report gets really detailed down where it's going to drill down to each of the different job strands, and it's going to give an interest and performance score on any of the jobs that they've done so far. It's also going to list any accommodations. You can see some of the examples of accommodations that can be made in PAES. It will list what that accommodation is, and you will also have recommendation for follow-up instruction. So that you will also have a subtask evaluation. So it's going to list out the subtasks that they were able to do independently with no prompting. And that's, you can have them keep working on those subtasks and working on them if you really do feel that eventually they're going to be able to do that independently. So that's going to give you a lot of really good data for your students. PAES also has a workplace skills assessment. These are the soft skills that employers tell us are necessary for getting and keeping a job. So you can see some of the different areas, pre-employment, like hygiene and grooming, communication skills, motivation, behavior, job performance and productivity, work habits, work-related skills, learning and transfer of job skills, interactions with their job supervisor and their coworkers. So once your employees are in PAES Lab, or however you decide to do this, each employee is going to go through a workplace skills evaluation, and there's a little booklet that goes along with it. So if your students have the capacity to reach within and help with the evaluations, we really encourage that. So, how do you feel you do on hygiene and grooming? Let's look about it. Let's read about it. And so each employee is going to be evaluated as being a strength, no problem, minor barrier to success, or a major barrier to success in keeping a job. So each of the employees are going to have 3 goals. So after they go through this evaluation, what are the 3 things you want to work on in the PAES Lab? And those become their daily goals, or their goals. The goals are typically put on the daily points record. And so that is where we're at the end of every job shift before the employees are clocking out. We're going to go through these soft skills with them, and their personal goals will be top of mind. And this is a wonderful way to track IEP goals, transition goals, daily living goals. Oftentimes they line up with the goals in PAES. The final report that comes out of PAES is called a PAES Assessment Narrative Report. It's written in layman's terms, so typically the whole IEP team really appreciates this narrative report. It's going to list the students' job skill strengths, their primary job interest, their job skill potential strengths, their workplace skills, strengths, and needs, and recommendations for community-based employment, and recommendations for post-secondary education. So that is what the narrative looks like. It's kind of a summary of performance of PAES. You will also get a whole library of transition goals and IEP objectives that flow in or work with the PAES Lab. They may not be written exactly like you need them worded, but it is a really nice library of both work skill objectives and daily living and life skills objectives that tie in with PAES. So in summary, PAES is a hands-on program. Oh my goodness, I just noticed there's a typo in that and I've never seen it. Program Minnesota, it looks like. So anyways, I'll have to get that fixed. I've never seen that, but PAES is a hands-on program that multitasks. It is job and life skills training. It is performance-based assessments. It is career exploration. It is work behavior development and data collection. I already told you PAES is used towards successful and appropriate work placement and used with IEPs and transition planning, and helps with the requirements, the transition requirements. Upon completion of PAES, a student has learned entry-level skills in multiple work areas. They've learned how to follow work procedures. They've learned about their own appropriate work behaviors and discovered their own interests for certain tasks and job skills. They've also learned problem-solving skills. Educators will know what skills the students can perform competitively and what special assistance or adaptations might be required for students, and what is the next best for students. Obviously, the strength and preferences of the students, the level of work behaviors, and the information for the IEPs. So that just gives a real overview of PAES. I would like to open it up to questions. If any of you have questions for me at this point, please just unmute yourself and fire away. Quiet group. You guys have a lot on your plate. I'm sure a lot to do. Just let me know if you have any questions. Or if I end this early, I'm sure you guys have things that you can get to. So just let me know.
And Heidi, I think we're still in the process of figuring everything out. And so I think people don't know what they don't know. And so as I think some of the questions will be answered as we kind of work things out and still getting the lab set up.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we're plugging away.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Brooklyn Center. This has been a work in progress for many years. I've been working with trying to get a lab set up in your school. I'm just thrilled to pieces that you guys are going to have this resource for your students, and I'm here to help with the implementation with whatever you need. I guess with that, unless there's any other questions, I'll just give it a few seconds here, but if anyone has anything to say.
Heidi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you,
Hi,
Lucy.
Heidi. This is Lucy. I'm the supervisor. Sorry, my microphone was not set up,
Okay.
evidently.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for going over this with us. And again, we're getting this set up, everybody. So it's kind of Julie's starting off like a little bit smaller, but it's going to keep on growing. And I think I'm really excited. I had the opportunity to work with a PAES lab at a previous district, and there's just a lot of potential. So thank you so much for all your support.
You're welcome. Thanks, Lucy. I guess I'll just sign off and say goodbye to everyone. Happy back to school to everyone, and good luck with your students. And let me know if you need anything. And like I said, I will get this loaded up to YouTube so that you have it for future.
Yep. And then we're all, everybody on this call that works for Brooklyn Center, we're going to be meeting at the district office after lunch. So let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Heidi, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.